Hey guys, so I'm going to talk about how I turn a basic song starter into a full track, which came out as my last single on RCA with Clementine Douglas. I started this song with a really basic kind of like another one of my song starters, which I'd made back in May last year, and I got inspired by a lot of old kind of Chicago and Detroit house music where they kind of sample a chord and then it's kind of placed in different positions, but you just do that by pitching. And I can't even remember doing it, but I think I bounced a chord and then pitched it. So this is the chord progression that I brought into the session. So I started playing that and everyone in the room was like, let's write to this, it'll be really fun, we could do something really different with that. And I really wanted to do that anyway. So that was how we started this song. And then from that point, I dragged that loop into Ableton and just kind of put some really basic, I think I put a bass line in and just some drum tops that were quite disco-y. And that was enough to get the vibe going. Clem started singing some melodies. We had two other writers in the room with us, and it was just like it was good fun writing that. So from that point, I took this loop, bounced it out, and then it was about getting the vocal down. So we'll go through that process now. Right, so yeah, once we'd written the song, it had been voice noted on people's phones. A lot of people just hit voice notes on their phones, record it in. I bounced the loop out that I had, which was really basic, just this. And then I recorded Clem's vocals to that loop. I like to treat, I don't know if this is just me, but mentally this really helps me, to treat your vocal production and your track production as kind of separate things. I think in a lot of pop music and in a lot of house music too, the vocals are really important. And for me, it helps to do all of the vocal production in one project and then once I've done the vocal production, bounce it out, print it, commit to it, take it into the main project and do it that way. I find that if I start doing the production of the vocal production in the main production project, I find that I just start tweaking things too much. And one thing I've learned is if you just commit to something, it speeds up your workflow like so much. So that's what I did on this project. I had this basic loop and then we recorded Clem.
You don't have to say you want to me and let your body do the talking, yeah. You're blowing up my mind like TNT, and take a look what you started. Let me nice to meet you, Enchanté. I like dirty dancing and champagne. I don't even need to know your name. You're making me feel special. You make me feel some type of way. Nice to meet you.
That's it. So from there, we wrapped things up for the day. I went home. I had that chorus going around my head all night. And then came in the next morning and thought, right, let's try and develop this a bit further, because it sounds cool as it is, but it's quite linear. There's not much dynamics in it. It needs like producing. So I guess now I will take you into the next project, phase 3 of how I made the song, into kind of more of the final production. So once I was happy with how the vocals sounded, like I said before, I like to print them. So as you can see, all the vocals here are audio, and for me mentally, it just really helps having it as audio printed. Sounds great. I normally print it dry, and then on the vocal track itself, I'll put an Ableton rack with a bit of reverb, keep one thing dry, and then a bit of delay, and that just gives me a bit of control.
You don't have to say you want to me and let your body do the talking.
Just gives me a bit of control over things. If I want to turn the reverbs down or turn the delays up, I can do that nice and easily. So yeah, put the vocal in. I thought the vocal was sounding really good, so I was happy with that. I mean, it's easy when you've got a voice like Clem's. And then put the stabs in, the kind of song starter stabs. And decided I didn't want it in the loop before, it was a bit intense, so I needed to kind of filter it out and then kind of turn that into a song. So I started it by filtering it, added a lot of delay, I added some delay, a bit of soothe, a bit of involution, and a reverb, which I really like, which does make quite a big difference when it drops, to be fair. I mean, it sounded like that before, and then it sounded a bit more full. So from there, I knew that I needed to kind of add drums and a bass to make it sound right. So what I'd normally do with my projects is I put the kicks at the top, bass, then drums. I like to be super organised, as you can probably tell. So from here, I added a kick, which was a nice kick that I had. Added a bunch of bass layers and some drums. And then added the stabs on top. So from there, I was like, I've got the drop sorted. I'll just kind of run through what the elements of that were. So yeah, it was just a basic kick, a bass, which consists of 4 layers. I like to layer stuff. I know some producers do not like doing this and like to just have one big sound that is the sound. But I've always done this, I've always layered things, and it just works for me. So it was a silent bass, another one, a different one which I used from a Just Kidding tune that I made called Body Talk, and then a Avenger. They're all quite similar sounds, but I just felt like together it sounded loads better. So that was the top bass. And then I normally add a sub underneath that, so I've got control over the sub as well, which you might not even be able to hear, but that's the sub. And then the drums was very similar. I actually layered a top loop, which was, again, like some producers will not like doing this, but that was probably about 5 to 10 drum loops that I'd chopped up and put together and EQ'd and turned down in different levels and bounced it out of an old project. And yeah, I'm not afraid to layer. I think it's kind of important. And then yeah, built that up on top of the stabs. Added in the vocals. And that's that. I quite often find that if you get the drop sounding good, I kind of like to start with the drop a lot of the time and just get that feeling really exciting and pretty finished. And then it's kind of just building up to that, coming away from that. You've done the hardest bit. The hardest part of the job's kind of been done. And then it's just kind of building tension, thinking about arrangement, and going through the sort of finer details of it. So yeah, in terms of like the finer details, I guess a lot of people call it something like ear candy. There's a few other bits going on. There's like this string that I put in, which I really liked, which is part of the F9. I don't know if anyone uses the F9 stuff, but it's really amazing. I put loads of things on it to kind of give it that sound. It sounded like this before. And then I just added some wideners, sidechain, a bit of RC20. So that's quite a key part of the song with the stabs. And then there's lots of Atmos things that kind of fill out the space. There's all these pads that we used. This was in the middle 8. There's a Reese bass, really simple Reese. Some weird Atmos here, I'm not even sure what that is. Kind of just thickens it out a little bit. And then I would have used either this or this to make weird riser things. I wanted the song to be quite analog and be quite playful. So I did exactly that and just played around on my synths and just had some fun. So I made some like weird risers, which sound kind of cool. Did some weird, this is called Acid 1. It'll be that guy. Added another acid synth, which is kind of happening throughout, which is just the Aniseed Muga preset. And I just kind of hit the filter. I think I hit the release. Messed around with that. I like to just, with analog stuff, I'll just put it on loop and then just have some fun and then just pick out the bits that I like of the audio after. And that's kind of it, really. From there, it was just, arrangement and figuring out the best, arrangement for the song. And that was kind of it from there. That's it. So in terms of mixing and how I would mix the record, I do a lot of mixing as I go. I find that normally works best for me and keeps me inspired to carry on working on the song. So I'll mix it to a level. This will probably be the final level that I would get it to. I will probably, produce it, come away from it, do a little bit more, make it 1% better after spending probably 5 hours tweaking things, and then realise I've taken it as far as I can, and at that point I will send it to mix. So yeah, I was pretty happy with it. I was pretty happy with this mix. And normally I start knowing when I've taken it as far as I can, because like I said, I'll spend hours and I'll be referencing. I'll always reference. I'll do a bounce of where I'm at, and I'll always reference where I'm at. I think that's a really key thing to do. So bounce where you're at, put it back in Ableton, set the output to external output, and then make some changes. And a lot of the time for me anyway, I'm not even making it better. And once I'm at that point where I'm like, I can't get this any better and getting a bit frustrated, I kind of know that's the point to send it to mix, to be honest. So push yourself until you get annoyed and then send it to mix.